The alien queen forced me to choose a daughter, and I picked the one they mocked. The great hall of the alien palace was vast and silent. Tall crystal pillars glowed with a faint light, and the air carried the weight of something ancient and powerful. 1,000 eyes turned toward the human as he walked forward. His footsteps echoed on the polished black floor, every step pulling him closer to the throne of the alien queen. If you enjoy human versus alien sci-fi stories, please make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next part of this tale. The queen herself sat high above on a throne carved from living stone. Her presence was heavy, like a mountain pressing down on all who looked at her. She was taller than any human, her silver crown stretching like wings above her head. Her voice, when it came, filled the chamber. "Human," she said, her tone both sharp and commanding. "You have been called here for a purpose. Today, you will make a choice." The hall trembled with her words. The courtiers whispered among themselves, their laughter cold and mocking. To them, a human was nothing more than a curiosity, a weak creature in a court of giants. But the queen's order silenced them. From the shadows behind her throne, a line of daughters stepped into view. Alien princesses, each one shining like a jewel. They were tall, elegant, and dangerous. Their eyes glowed faintly, their movements sharp like blades. Each one was a vision of alien perfection, crafted to impress, designed to intimidate. The queen raised her hand, and the room fell silent again. "You will choose one," she declared. "One daughter will be yours. She will stand beside you. She will share your fate. Choose carefully, human, for your choice will echo in the history of my people." The human froze. His heart beat faster. He had expected many things when he was summoned to the palace. Perhaps punishment, perhaps some cruel trial. But this, to be told to pick a daughter of the alien queen, this was not what he had prepared for. The crowd pressed closer. Dozens of alien nobles leaned in, eager to watch his failure. They expected him to choose the most beautiful, the strongest, the most fearsome of the daughters. They wanted him to reveal his weakness, his human desire. The princesses stood in a perfect row. The first looked at him with cold superiority. The second smirked, confident in her unmatched beauty. The third flexed her arm, showing her warrior's strength. Each daughter seemed larger than life. But then, at the far end of the line, stood another, smaller, quieter, different. Her head was bowed, her shoulders hunched, as if she wished to vanish into the shadows. She did not meet his eyes. Her dress, though fine, did not shine like the others. Her skin bore faint scars, and her hair fell across her face like a curtain. The crowd shifted when he looked at her. The whispers grew louder. Some nobles even laughed, covering their mouths as if mocking was a kind of game. "She?" someone whispered. "Surely not. She is a disgrace. She is not worthy to even stand here." The queen's gaze followed his. Her eyes narrowed, cold and sharp. For a moment, the air in the hall grew heavier, as if she could already see the thought forming in his mind. The human took a step forward. His throat was dry, his hands trembling, but his eyes did not waver. He felt the weight of 1,000 alien eyes, waiting for him to choose the obvious, the beautiful, the strong, the flawless. But his gaze returned to the girl at the end of the line, the one who tried to hide, the one they all laughed at. She raised her eyes for the briefest moment, and he saw something there. Not strength, not beauty, something else. A spark, a fire buried deep, hidden beneath layers of shame. A quiet storm waiting to be unleashed. The hall seemed to stretch into silence. Time slowed. The queen leaned forward, curious now. The nobles whispered, their voices sharp like knives. The daughters stared, some with arrogance, some with jealousy, some with fear. The human opened his mouth. His voice, though quiet, carried through the hall like a strike of thunder. "I choose her." The room exploded. Nobles gasped, some shouted. Laughter rang out like a cruel song. The princesses looked shocked, insulted. Even the chosen daughter's eyes widened, filled with disbelief. "She?" one noble shouted. "He chooses the broken one," another cried. "The human has no sense." But the queen only sat back in her throne, her face unreadable. Her eyes glowed faintly, as if she had expected something like this, or perhaps as if this choice was exactly what she wanted. The human stood firm. He ignored their laughter. He ignored their scorn. His hand extended toward the girl at the end of the line, the one they mocked, the one they dismissed. "I choose her," he repeated, his voice steady this time. The girl lowered her head again, her shoulders trembling, not from shame, but from something else, something no one else could see. The queen's lips curved into the faintest of smiles, a smile no one in the hall noticed. She raised her hand, and the chamber fell into silence once more. "So be it," she said, her voice echoing like thunder across the hall. And with those words, the fate of the human and the outcast daughter was sealed. The great hall did not remain silent for long. The human's words still echoed in the air. "I choose her." At first, there was disbelief. Faces twisted in shock. Eyes widened and jaws hung open. Then, like a spark falling on dry grass, the disbelief turned into laughter, loud, cruel, echoing laughter that bounced against the tall crystal pillars and shook the chamber. Dozens of alien nobles bent forward, clutching their stomachs, their jeweled crowns rattling as they laughed at the human's foolishness. "The human has lost his mind," one cried. "Of all the daughters, he chooses that one?" another mocked, his voice sharp as a blade. "He could have taken strength, power, beauty, but he chose weakness." The laughter spread like wildfire, cruel and cutting. Some of the princesses covered their mouths, smirking. Others laughed openly, pointing at the girl the human had chosen. Their tall frames shook with the force of their mockery. Only the chosen daughter stood silent. Her eyes were fixed on the floor. Her body trembled, though whether from fear or from something deeper, none could tell. Her cheeks burned with shame. She had always been the shadow among her sisters, the one they whispered about, the one they excluded. And now, with the human's choice, her humiliation had become a spectacle for the entire court. The queen raised her hand, and though her face remained unreadable, her voice cut through the chaos. "Silence!" The laughter faltered, though smirks lingered on many faces. Nobles bowed their heads but whispered still, unable to contain their delight at this scandal. The human stood tall. Though his heart hammered in his chest, his face was calm. He looked at the nobles, their laughter still dripping like venom, and then at the girl he had chosen. She finally lifted her eyes, just for a moment. He saw the pain there, the way she wished to disappear. But behind the pain, he saw something else. An ember, a spark. She could not believe he had chosen her, but she wanted to understand why. The queen's voice filled the hall once more. "You have made your choice. What is done cannot be undone. She is yours now, but—" Her gaze swept across the chamber, her eyes lingering on the nobles who had laughed the loudest. "The court has the right to test you both." A murmur rippled through the hall, sharp and dangerous. The nobles' laughter turned into sly smiles. Tests, trials, challenges. They would have their chance to prove the human a fool, to crush the girl he had chosen. One noble, a tall warrior draped in blood-red armor, stepped forward. His voice was like thunder, his grin cruel. "Queen, if the human insists on choosing the weakest, then let him show us her strength. Let them both survive the arena, if they can." The crowd roared in agreement. The arena, a place where beasts roamed, where strength was proven, where weakness was punished with death. The queen's eyes flickered, faint amusement hidden in their depths. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "but not yet. The time will come." The nobles bowed, but their smiles remained sharp. They could already see the ending: failure, shame, death. To them, it was only a matter of time. The human looked back at the girl again. He saw her lips move, as if she whispered something too soft for anyone else to hear. Only he caught it. Why would you choose me?" He stepped closer, so their voices were lost in the noise of the court. "Because," he said softly, "I saw you when no one else did." Her breath caught. She searched his face, trying to find a trick, a lie, but found none. No mockery, no pity, only truth. The court watched, still laughing in their hearts. To them, this was weakness. A human choosing compassion over power. A human choosing failure. But the queen sat back on her throne, her lips curving in the faintest of smiles. She tapped her finger against the armrest, her thoughts hidden, her eyes sharp. To her, this was no comedy. It was a game, a test, a seed planted in secret. And as the nobles turned away, still mocking, still laughing, none of them noticed the faint glow in the girl's eyes. A hidden power, long suppressed, flickered for just an instant. The human did not see it. The nobles did not see it. But the queen did, and her smile deepened. For now, the laughter of the court rang loud, filling the hall with scorn and cruelty. But soon, very soon, that laughter would choke in their throats, and the one they mocked would rise. The palace HFY Sci always stretched like endless tunnels of stone and crystal. After the queen dismissed the court, guards escorted the human and the chosen daughter through those silent corridors. The laughter of the nobles still echoed faintly behind them, like ghosts mocking from afar. The girl walked with her head low, her steps slow. Her hands were clenched tightly, as if holding on to something invisible. She had been mocked all her life, but tonight the humiliation burned deeper. For the first time, her shame had been displayed before the entire court. The human walked beside her, silent but steady. He did not bow his head, nor show fear. He had seen the cruelty of the court, but he had also seen something in her that no one else noticed, and he meant to find out what it was. When they reached the chambers given to them, the guards left. The heavy doors closed with a thud, and for the first time, they were alone. The girl stayed near the wall, her back pressed against the cold stone, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. She would not meet his eyes. "You didn't have to choose me," she whispered at last, her voice soft, broken. "You could have chosen any of them, the strong, the beautiful, the perfect. Why would you shame yourself with me?" The human turned to her, his face calm. "Because they all look the same to me," he said quietly. "But you looked like someone who carried a story." Her breath caught. She raised her eyes for the first time, and he saw the storm within them. Fear, anger, and something else. Something hidden. "You don't understand," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm not like them. I am not strong, not powerful. I'm broken. That is why they laugh. That is why even my sisters despise me." She turned away, her hands shaking. Her scars caught the faint glow of the chamber's lamps, lines across her skin that spoke of battles unseen. The human step ped closer. "Scars do not mean weakness, they mean survival." The words hung in the air. She froze as if no one had ever spoken to her like that before. Slowly, she turned back, her lips parting as if to argue, but instead, something inside her gave way, and for the first time, she revealed her secret. She raised her hand. Her fingers trembled. A faint blue light sparked to life in her palm, soft and flickering, like a flame struggling against the wind. The human's eyes widened, but he did not step back. He simply watched. The light grew brighter. Small arcs of energy danced between her fingers, humming softly. It was not the power of her sisters, who could bend steel with their arms or crush stone with their fists. This was different, stranger, wilder. "I was born with this," she whispered, her voice heavy with shame. "A power forbidden in the Empire. My mother calls it a curse. My sisters call it weakness. They say I am dangerous, unstable, useless. So I hide it. I hide myself, and they laugh because they know I will never be like them." Her hand shook, and the light flickered, then died. She clutched it to her chest, her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "I should not even exist," she said bitterly. "That is why they laughed when you chose me. They expected you to be like them, to want beauty, to want strength. But you—" She shook her head. "You made me a fool before them all." The human stood silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he stepped forward and placed his hand over hers. "You are not a fool," he said softly, "and you are not broken. You are different, and sometimes difference is what changes everything." She looked at him, stunned. No one had ever spoken of her gift as anything but a curse. No one had ever touched her hand without fear or disgust. The ember in her heart, the one buried so deep she had almost forgotten it, flickered again. But before she could speak, a sound echoed from beyond the chamber doors. Footsteps, voices, the hiss of alien whispers. The human turned, high, senses sharp. The girl stiffened. "They are watching us," she whispered urgently. "The nobles, they will not stop. They want to see you fail, and they will use me to destroy you." The human's jaw tightened. "Then let them watch," he said, "because they will see something they never expected." She stared at him, torn between fear and hope. His calmness, his certainty. It was like a shield, one she had never known before. For a moment, the chamber was silent except for the sound of her breathing. She looked down at her scarred hands, then back at him. And for the first time in her life, she allowed herself to wonder. What if her curse was not a curse at all? What if, with this human beside her, it could become something greater? But even as the thought formed, the voices outside the door grew louder. The court was not finished with them. Trials were coming. Danger was approaching. And her secret, her forbidden power, would soon be tested. The ember in her heart glowed brighter, and though she still doubted herself, for the first time, she did not feel entirely alone. The palace did not sleep that night. Though the queen had dismissed her court, the halls remained alive with hushed voices and restless movement. Shadows of nobles glided through the corridors, their cloaks trailing behind them like serpents. Their faces, sharp with anger and pride, leaned close to one another as whispers filled the air. The laughter of the court had not ended in the throne room. It had only transformed into something sharper, something poisonous. The human disgraces us. He mocks the queen's gift, to choose the weakest daughter. It is an insult to the bloodline itself. Their words dripped with venom, but behind the anger there was also fear. Fear that the queen allowed it. Fear that she had a hidden reason, and fear that the human's choice, though foolish, might mean more than it seemed. In one of the torch-lit chambers, several nobles gathered around a long stone table. Jewels glittered on their robes, and alien wine filled their cups. Yet their voices carried the weight of conspiracy. "The queen tests us all," one noble growled, his jaw tight. "But this human is no test. He is a stain. He must not remain." "And the girl?" another sneered. "The cursed one? She is weak. She is dangerous. Her very existence is a shame to the royal blood. Better if she dies with him." They nodded in agreement, their whispers weaving into a net of treachery. Unknown to them, in the shadows near the chamber door, a pair of glowing eyes listened. The chosen daughter, silent as smoke, had followed them. Her gift, the one they despised, allowed her to slip unseen when she wished. Energy hummed faintly within her veins, a whisper of power that made her senses sharper than theirs. Every cruel word pierced her like a blade. She had always known they hated her, but hearing it so openly, so viciously, burned her deeper than ever before. They planned to kill him, she thought, her breath trembling. And me. She wanted to run. She wanted to cry, but instead, she forced herself to remain. She needed to know more. Another noble leaned forward, his eyes narrow. The arena will be our chance. The queen cannot protect him there. Let the human face the beasts. Let the cursed girl show her weakness. They will die, and no blood of ours will be wasted. The others agreed, their voices dark with satisfaction. Plans formed like webs. Threads of betrayal spun in the silence of the night. But then, one noble, an older, colder figure, spoke words that chilled her blood. Do not underestimate the queen. She watches for something we cannot see. If the human survives, if the girl's curse proves useful, then perhaps the queen herself intends for them to rise. A hush fell over the group. Fear crept into their eyes. The chosen daughter's heart pounded. She knew her mother, the queen, was always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. But if that was true, then what role did she and the human play in this dangerous game? Were they pawns, or something more? She slipped away before the nobles could sense her presence. Her steps were swift, her breath shallow. She needed to warn him. Inside their chamber, the human sat awake. He had not rested since the court had ended. His instincts told him danger was near. The heavy silence outside the door felt unnatural, like the calm before a storm. When the girl entered, he saw the fear in her eyes. She closed the door quickly and pressed her back against it, her chest rising and falling fast. They want to kill you, she whispered. The nobles, they plan to use the arena to destroy us both. He nodded slowly, as if he had already expected it. Then we will not let them. She looked at him, confused. You don't understand. The arena is death, beasts that even warriors fear. And me? She shook her head, her voice sea-breaking. I cannot fight like them. I cannot save you. The human stood and stepped closer, his gaze steady. You saved me already, he said. She blinked, startled. When? In the hall. When they laughed, you stood there and endured it. You faced more than I did. You have survived their scorn your whole life. That strength is greater than theirs. His words struck something deep within her. She wanted to deny them, to push them away, but the ember in her heart glowed again, stronger this time. Still, fear gripped her. She whispered, almost to herself, if they see what I am, they will kill me. My power is forbidden. It is the reason they hate me. The human looked at her scars, at the shame she carried like a chain. Then he spoke with a calm certainty that shook her. Then let them see it. Her eyes widened. You don't understand. If I reveal it, they will fear you, he finished. And fear can be power. The chamber fell silent. She looked into his eyes and saw no fear, no hesitation, only belief. Belief in her, the one no one had ever chosen, the one everyone mocked. For the first time, she felt the weight of her secret shift. What if her curse was not her weakness, but her weapon? The night passed with whispers in every corner of the palace. The nobles sharpened their blades of treachery. The queen watched from her throne, her thoughts hidden like stars behind clouds. And in a quiet chamber, a human and the outcast daughter stood together, their fates bound tighter than ever before. The rebellion of whispers had begun, and soon the arena would decide if those whispers would end in laughter or in blood. The morning sky above the alien city was crimson, the color of blood and fire. Bells rang from the high towers of the palace. their tones deep and cold, summoning the entire court to witness the trial. The arena lay at the heart of the city, carved into the bones of a mountain. Its walls were black stone, smooth and ancient, etched with the scars of centuries of battles. From above, thousands of alien eyes looked down, as in warriors packed into the great circle, waiting for the spectacle promised to them. The queen sat upon her elevated throne, calm and regal, her silver crown glinting beneath the morning light. Around her, the nobles whispered eagerly. They smelled blood before the battle even began. "The human will not last a minute," one said. "The cursed daughter will break before the beasts touch her," another sneered. "They will die, and the queen will see we were right." Their laughter rippled through the stands like cruel music. At the center of the arena stood the human and the outcast daughter. The human's clothes were plain, his only weapon a spear given to him by the guards. He tightened his grip, feeling its weight. He was no stranger to danger, but this was unlike anything he had faced before. Beside him, the girl stood still, her head low, her hands trembling slightly. She had been forced into a ceremonial robe, but her scars and shame still showed. The crowd booed at the sight of her, their voices cruel, echoing off the stone walls. The queen raised her hand, and silence fell. Her voice carried across the arena like thunder. "Today," she declared, "the human and his chosen will face the trial of strength. Let their survival prove their worth, or let their failure mark their end." The gates at the far end of the arena creaked open. The sound was deep, grinding, as if stone itself resisted, unleashing what lay behind it. Darkness filled the tunnel beyond, and from it came a low growl that shook the sand beneath their feet. The human's chest tightened. He raised his spear. The girl's breath caught. Her fingers twitched as if her power stirred within her, restless. The ground trembled as the first beast stepped into the light. It was massive, towering twice the height of a man, its body covered in jagged scales like obsidian armor. Its eyes glowed yellow, burning with hunger. Two more followed, their claws carving deep trenches into the sand, their mouths dripping with venom. The crowd roared with delight. "3 beasts," one noble cried. "They will be torn apart!" The creatures circled, growls rumbling like thunder. The human shifted his stance, sweat prickling his brow. He had one spear, no shield, and no chance of outrunning them. Yet he planted his feet firmly, refusing to retreat. The first beast lunged. The human dodged, rolling across the sand. The spear cut shallowly across the beast's leg, but it only enraged the creature further. The second beast swung its tail, and the human barely leapt aside as the ground cracked where he had stood. The daughter stood frozen, her heart racing. She had trained all her life to hide her power, to suppress it. Her sisters had mocked her for her weakness, and her mother had warned her of the danger within. Now, surrounded by eyes that wanted her to fail, she felt the weight of choice pressing on her chest. The human stumbled, narrowly avoiding the beast's fangs. His spear shattered as it struck against thick scales. He fell backward, the sand rising around him. The crowd cheered, certain of his end. The girl's eyes widened. Something inside her broke. "No," she whispered. She stepped forward, her hands shaking violently. Sparks of blue light flickered at her fingertips, weak at first, then growing, building, feeding on her fear and fury. The air around her crackled. The beasts turned. They sensed it. The crowd gasped, murmurs rising in shock. The girl screamed, and the light burst from her palms in a blinding flash. Bolts of energy arced across the arena, striking one of the beasts in the chest. It roared, stumbling backward as the smell of scorched flesh filled the air. The human shielded his eyes, stunned but alive. The crowd erupted. Some shouted in disbelief. Others cried out in horror. "It's true! She wields the forbidden power! She should not exist!" The nobles pointed, their voices rising in panic. But the queen did not move. She only watol, atched, her eyes sharp, her lips curved in the faintest of smiles. The beasts recovered, enraged. They lunged at her now, seeing her as the greater threat. The human jumped to his feet, grabbing a broken spear shaft. He placed himself between her and the closest beast, striking its eye as it came down. The creature screamed, thrashing wildly. The girl raised both hands, her energy flaring brighter. This time it did not flicker. It roared. A storm of light poured from her, wrapping the beasts in chains of crackling energy. Their bodies convulsed, their roars drowned by the sound of crackling power. The entire arena shook. The crowd fell into stunned silence. When the light faded, 2 of the beasts lay motionless, their armored bodies smoking. The third limped away, blinded, before collapsing in the sand. Silence. Then whispers. The crowd stared at the girl, no longer laughing. Their mockery was gone, replaced by fear. The nobles who had plotted her death shifted uneasily, their faces pale. The human turned to her. She was breathing hard, her body trembling, but her eyes burned with power. For the first time, she did not lower her head. She looked at the crowd directly, her shame stripped away. The queen rose slowly from her throne. Her voice carried across the arena, clear and commanding. Behold, the power you all despised, the one you mocked, now stands above you. Remember this moment. The court bowed, but their whispers were darker than ever. Fear had replaced laughter, and fear was far more dangerous. The human stood beside her, steadying her as she swayed from exhaustion. He leaned close and whispered so only she could hear. "They wanted to laugh at you," he said. "Now they will never forget you." Her lips trembled. For the first time in her life she smiled, not from joy, but from knowing she no longer walked in shadows. The trial was over, but the true danger had only begun. The arena was still heavy with smoke. The smell of scorched scales clung to the air as servants dragged away the bodies of the fallen beasts. The sand, blackened and cracked, bore the scars of the daughter's unleashed power. But the silence was louder than the roars of the monsters. Thousands of alien eyes stared at her, the outcast who had just shattered their expectations. The nobles who once mocked her now whispered in fear, their words sharp and frantic. The daughter stood in the center, her hands trembling, blue sparks still faintly glowing around her fingers. The human remained at her side, steady and calm, as if daring anyone to challenge them. And above it all, the queen rose from her throne. Her long cloak flowed behind her like a river of night. Each step down the throne's stairs echoed across the arena, commanding silence. The nobles bowed their heads, but unease filled their movements. She stopped before the human and her daughter, her eyes, sharp as blades, fixed on the man who had caused such chaos. "You chose the one no one else would," the queen said, her voice low but heavy with power. "Now she has revealed what she is." The human met her gaze without flinching. "Yes," he said simply. The queen studied him for a long moment. Her eyes searched for weakness, for arrogance, for anything she could use to crush him. But all she found was calm resolve. She turned her gaze to her daughter. "You have carried this curse in silence," she said. "You hid it because you feared it, because you believed the voices that told you it was shame." The girl's eyes dropped for a moment, but then she lifted her head. For the first time in her life, she did not shrink. "I hid it because I thought I was unworthy," she whispered. The queen's lips curved faintly, and yet, when it mattered most, you used it. The crowd murmured nervously. Some nobles shifted. Others clenched their fists. They feared where this was going. The queen's eyes sharpened. She turned back to the human. "Tell me, human, why? Why did you choose her? You could have had beauty unmatched, strength unrivaled, A daughter the court would respect, and yet you chose the weakest, the broken one. Why? The silence was crushing. Every noble leaned forward. Every soldier held their breath. This was the moment, the test that mattered more than the beasts, more than the arena. The human stood tall, his voice steady, carrying across the arena like thunder. Because no one else would, and because I saw what they could not. The queen's eyes narrowed. And what did you see? He turned his head, looking at the daughter beside him. She met his gaze, her breath caught in her chest. For once, she wanted to hear someone speak for her, not against her. I saw fire, he said. A spark that they were too blind to notice. They saw weakness. I saw strength buried deep. They saw a curse. I saw something waiting to change the world. The nobles erupted in shouts. Arrogance! He lies. He seeks to trick the queen. The queen raised her hand, silencing them. Her eyes, however, did not leave the human. For a long moment, the weight of her gaze pressed against him like a storm. Then, slowly, she smiled. Perhaps, she said softly, you are not as foolish as they think. The nobles froze, their protests dying in their throats. Fear flickered in their eyes. If the queen sided with him, then all their plots, all their mockery, would mean nothing. But the queen was not done. She circled him slowly, her voice sharp as a blade. Do you understand what you have done, human? By choosing her, you have revealed her secret. The court now sees her power. They will never stop fearing her. They will never stop trying to destroy her. You have placed a target on both your backs. The what? Human's jaw tightened. He knew the truth of her words, but he did not waver. Then let them come, he said. The queen stopped, facing him once more. Her eyes glowed faintly, like silver fire. Bravery, she said, or madness. She turned to her daughter, her expression unreadable. You, child, have lived in the shadows of your sisters. They laughed at you, they despised you, but now the court has seen what you are capable of. You are no longer invisible. Tell me then, will you embrace this power, or will you continue to hide? The daughter's heart pounded. Every eye in the arena burned into her. Her whole life she had lived in shame, but now she stood at the center, and the choice was hers. Her lips trembled, her hands clenched into fists. She looked at her mother, then at the man who had chosen her, who had believed in her when no one else did. I will not hide, she said, her voice shaking but strong. Not anymore. Gasps echoed through the stands. Nobles whispered furiously. Some were enraged, others terrified. The queen's smile deepened, as if this was exactly the answer she had been waiting for. She raised her hand, and the arena fell silent once more. Then so be it, she declared. The human has chosen, the daughter has spoken. Let all remember this day. The nobles bowed reluctantly, their eyes filled with hate. The whispers of rebellion grew sharper, darker. The queen had not crushed the human or his daughter, but she had not protected them either. She had only set the stage for what came next. As the human and the girl were led back to their chambers, the court's whispers followed them like a storm. But the queen sat upon her throne, her smile unreadable, her thoughts hidden. She had tested them, they had not broken, and now the true game would begin. The palace was restless. Word of the arena spread through the city like fire through dry fields. The streets hummed with whispers. The cursed daughter revealed her power. The human defied the nobles and lived. The queen herself smiled. What had begun as laughter in the throne room had now turned into fear across the empire. Fear of what the girl could become. Fear of the human who chose her. Fear of what the queen intended. Inside the royal court, the nobles gathered again. Their faces were pale, their voices sharp. "This cannot continue," one snarled. "She is dangerous. He empowers her curse. If we do nothing, they will rise above us all." But even as they spoke, none dared raise their voice too loud. The queen's eyes were everywhere, and fear of her silenced even the boldest among them. That evening, the human and the daughter were summoned once more to the throne room. The great hall glowed with dim crystal light, shadows stretching long across the floor. The nobles stood on either side, their expressions masks of scorn and unease. The queen sat upon her throne, her face calm, unreadable. The human stepped forward, his chin high. The daughter walked beside him, not hiding, not shrinking. For the first time, her shoulders were straight, her steps firm. The scars on her body no longer seemed marks of shame. They looked like battle lines, reminders of survival. The queen's gaze swept the hall. "When this began, you all laughed," she said, her voice carrying like a storm. "You mocked my daughter. You mocked the human. You mocked the choice that was made." The nobles shifted uncomfortably, but no one dared answer. "And yet," the queen continued, "you all saw what happened in the arena. The beasts fell. The curse you despised became strength. The weakness you mocked became survival. Tell me, nobles of my court, do you still laugh?" The silence was heavy. No one spoke. No one dared. At last one noble cleared his throat, his voice thin. We do not laugh, my queen." The queen's eyes glowed faintly, sharp as blades. "Good. Then learn from this. Respect is not given to beauty alone. Power is not measured only in muscle. Sometimes strength hides in the one you least expect." Her words cracked through the chamber like thunder. The nobles bowed their heads, but their whispers turned inward, darker than ever. Respect born of fear was fragile. Rebellion still simmered beneath the surface. When the court was dismissed, the queen did not let the human and her daughter leave. She rose from her throne and descended the steps until she stood before them. Her eyes lingered on her daughter, who now met her gaze without trembling. For the first time, mother and child stood as equals. "You have taken the first step," the queen said softly. "But the path ahead is dangerous. Power reveals enemies as much as it creates respect." The daughter bowed her head slightly. "I know, but I will not hide any more." The queen studied her, then turned to the human. Her lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "You have changed her. I wonder, human, will you also change my empire?" The human did not answer. His silence was neither arrogance nor fear. It was resolve, and the queen seemed satisfied. That night, the palace grew quiet, but unrest simmered in the shadows. Nobles gathered in secret once more, their voices sharp with desperation. "She is dangerous. He has bewitched her. If we allow them to rise, the queen may favor them above us. Then we must act before it is too late." Plans of rebellion sharpened like knives in the dark, but the queen, watching from her tower, already knew. Her eyes, glowing faintly against the night, saw further than her nobles realized. She wanted this tension. She wanted the court to reveal its true heart. And now, because of the human's choice, because of the daughter's awakening, the court's hidden rot was beginning to show. The next morning, as dawn's light spilled over the city, the human and the daughter stood on the palace balcony. The world below was vast, alien, and dangerous, but for the first time, the girl did not feel small. The wind tugged at her hair as she looked at the man beside her. Her voice was quiet, but steady. "They used to laugh at me," she said. "Now they fear me." He nodded. "And soon they may respect you." She turned her eyes back to the horizon, her scars glowing faintly in the rising light. For so long, she had been the shadow at the edge of her sister's brilliance. Now she stood where all could see her, and she was no longer afraid. Behind them, the queen watched in silence. Her smile was thin, her eyes sharp with calculation. She had tested them. They had passed, and now she would use them. The nobles would plot, the empire would shake, rebellion would rise, and at the center of it all stood a human and the daughter he chose, the one they laughed at, the one they mocked. Now she was the one they feared, and soon she might become the one they followed. The alien queen forced me to choose a daughter, and I picked the one they mocked. The great hall of the alien palace was vast and silent. Tall crystal pillars glowed with a faint light, and the air carried the weight of something ancient and powerful. 1,000 eyes turned toward the human as he walked forward. His footsteps echoed on the polished black floor, every step pulling him closer to the throne of the alien queen. If you enjoy human versus alien sci-fi stories, please make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next part of this tale. The queen herself sat high above on a throne carved from living stone. Her presence was heavy, like a mountain pressing down on all who looked at her. She was taller than any human, her silver crown stretching like wings above her head. Her voice, when it came, filled the chamber. "Human," she said, her tone both sharp and commanding. "You have been called here for a purpose. Today you will make a choice." The hall trembled with her words. The courtiers whispered among themselves, their laughter cold and mocking. To them, a human was nothing more than a curiosity, a weak creature in a court of giants. But the queen's order silenced them. From the shadows behind her throne, a line of daughters stepped into view. Alien princesses, each one shining like a jewel. They were tall, elegant, and dangerous. Their eyes glowed faintly, their movements sharp like blades. Each one was a vision of alien perfection, crafted to impress, designed to intimidate. The queen raised her hand, and the room fell silent again. "You will choose one," she declared. "One daughter will be yours. She will stand beside you. She will share your fate. Choose carefully, human, for your choice will echo in the history of my people." The human froze. His heart beat faster. He had expected many things when he was summoned to the palace. Perhaps punishment, perhaps some cruel trial. But this, to be told to pick a daughter of the alien queen, this was not what he had prepared for. The crowd pressed closer. Dozens of alien nobles leaned in, eager to watch his failure. They expected him to choose the most beautiful, the strongest, the most fearsome of the daughters. They wanted him to reveal his weakness, his human desire. The princesses stood in a perfect row. The first looked at him with cold superiority. The second smirked, confident in her unmatched beauty. The third flexed her arm, showing her warrior's strength. Each daughter seemed larger than life. But then, at the far end of the line, stood another, smaller, quieter, different. Her head was bowed, her shoulders hunched, as if she wished to vanish into the shadows. She did not meet his eyes. Her dress, though fine, did not shine like the others. Her skin bore faint scars, and her hair fell across her face like a curtain. The crowd shifted when he looked at her. The whispers grew louder. Some nobles even laughed, covering their mouths as if mocking was a kind of game. "She?" someone whispered. "Surely not. She is a disgrace. She is not worthy to even stand here." The queen's gaze followed his. Her eyes narrowed, cold and sharp. For a moment the air in the hall grew heavier, as if she could already see the thought forming in his mind. The human took a step forward. His throat was dry, his hands trembling, but his eyes did not waver. He felt the weight of 1,000 alien eyes, waiting for him to choose the obvious, the beautiful, the strong, the flawless. But his gaze returned to the girl at the end of the line, the one who tried to hide, the one they all laughed at. She raised her eyes for the briefest moment, and he saw something there. Not strength, not beauty, something else. A spark, a fire buried deep, hidden beneath layers of shame. A quiet storm waiting to be unleashed. The hall seemed to stretch into silence. Time slowed. The queen leaned forward, curious now.